So I'm Jon von Tetzchner. I work for Vivaldi. We make browsers. I've been building browsers actually since 1994, so I guess it's what I do. First at Opera and now at Vivaldi.
And why do you continue to build browsers?
Well, I really enjoyed what I was doing at Opera. I was the co-founder of Opera and CEO for 15 years, and I left the company because of disagreement with investors, and I was thinking about kind of what to do when I grow up, and actually heading in a different direction. But then something happened. My old company decided to throw away 19 years of work and kind of start with a different design philosophy. And we had a certain design philosophy at Opera, and I felt that was now missing. And there was a lot of people that had liked our design philosophy and our values, and they had chosen Opera because of that, and they were distraught. They were actually contacting me and asking, "Can't you do something about it?" And well, I was no longer at Opera. My voice was not being heard there anymore, obviously, because otherwise they wouldn't have done what they did. So I was left with really one choice. If I want to support those people that supported me and us for all those years, I had to build another browser again.
Yeah. So, what was? I think I will. What was your original intention with Opera then? Why did you do that in the first place?
Well, part of it was just to build technology, but part of it was also that we wanted to build a user interface and a software that was allowing people to work in the way that they'd like to do, which includes people that had special needs. Mm-hmm. My father is a professor in psychology, specializing on children with disabilities. So from the very beginning, the thought was, okay, we want this to be usable for the greatest amount of people, meaning you can use keyboard shortcuts, single keyboard shortcuts, because that's good for people that have limited ability to move or the like. We had people with rods on their head that were able to use the browser because of that. We put in things like Zoom, which no other browser was doing at the time, making things bigger. And we had abilities to control the colors and the like, because people might be colorblind or the like. But part of the thinking was always, whatever we do for one group of people helps others. So even though you might say, okay, the keyboard shortcuts is really important for a certain group of people, for a lot of others like myself, it was just a way to work faster. So that's been the principle of this, that we adapt to you and your requirements. What you want is what we build. We had this at Opera and we have it at Vivaldi now. So building software based on the feedback with close relationship with the end users, which actually means we also have a lot of volunteers helping us. Yeah. We have people that are giving us feedback, that are helping us deal with defects that are being reported. We are having hundreds of people helping us translate to more than 50 languages. So we have this extremely close relationship with our user base, which is, by the way, one of the reasons why I felt kind of when Opera went in a different direction that was not good.
So is Opera open source, or was it just a community of contributors?
It was... Opera was not open source, but it was basically we had an open source way of running the company. For sure. We had this close relationship with the end users, and what they said mattered, and that's how we decided how we would build things and what we would build, besides obviously having a very creative organization.
Just keeping in the past just for a minute longer or so, one of the areas where Opera actually was kind of the most successful was mobile, and you already talked a lot about accessibility and keyboard shortcuts and things like that, which are not all achievable on mobile. So did you feel that you took those same steps to make it as usable as possible on mobile as well, and what were they?
Yeah, one of the most important things was actually to run on mobiles at all.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Because when we started working in 1999, the idea that you would have an actual real browser working on your mobile was not the case. You had WAP.
Yeah, I remember it.
and so the idea was you would have separate content on mobile which was inferior to what you would have otherwise. So we thought, no, we'll put a real browser. So we spent all those resources getting a browser that actually would run on almost no memory, which is a major feat. I mean, to have a browser run on these small, older phones, so way before any of the current day smartphones were in the market, we were able to run on the early Symbian phones. We were actually running. Yes, they were smartphones, but I can tell you they were not really made to run software that requires megabytes of data.
No, for sure. I remember them. I think one of my favorite phones still remains the Sony Ericsson T68i, which had a color screen and Bluetooth.
So we were way before our time.
Yeah.
But part of what we then decided to do, which I think was in many ways our biggest success, was Opera Mini.
Yes.
And the principle of Opera Mini, if you think about it, is the same. We want to adapt to your requirements. Now, in this case, the requirements was you have phones that are not able to run a full browser. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Now, we think everyone should get access to the internet. So what do? We run the browser on the server side, and we run a little application on the client side. And the combination of those means that you actually have a fully working browser for all practical purposes running on a phone that would hardly run anything else.
Yeah. Okay. Sticking in the past for one final question before we move forward to the present. So what did go wrong? What do you think went wrong? What was the cause of it? Was it because it was a new investment, wasn't it, I think? Or was it steps before that where you felt like things were going in the wrong direction?
So what went wrong with Opera is that we followed a certain pattern, right? We got investment money actually after 5 years. So we were on our own for 5 years. Then we got investment money. And when you get investment money, you go public or you sell.
Yeah.
So we sold. We went public, right?
Okay.
And from that perspective, we felt that we were delivering to the investors. We were also delivering 40 to 50% revenue growth every year. We were highly profitable.
Yeah.
The problem was that a number of our investors, they were waiting for us to... I mean, they wanted to sell the company.
Yeah.
They were convinced that this 15 years of success of 40 to 50% revenue growth, increasing user base, increasing position in the market had to be luck. And that we better sell before it's too late. And that was an ongoing fight actually for 7 years.
Okay, wow.
At which time, I guess,
draining,
I mean, I got tired, but also more important, the people around me got tired of this situation. So I decided, okay, maybe it's better that I withdraw and hopefully the new management will get the chance to build the company. But instead, I mean, their focus was very quickly on selling the company, which they tried to do for all that time and finally managed to sell the browser to China.
Yeah. No.
Which I think is not the best end in any shape or form.
Did a lot of people come with you from Opera to Vivaldi, or?
I mean, a number of the people that are working in the company are former Opera people. Okay. The nice thing is the people want to work with me again, and they want to work with each other again. Yeah. There's a very close collaboration there, and they like what we are doing, so they like doing it again.
Okay. So I did, when Vivaldi first came out, I did try one of the previews. I'm not sure how long ago it was or which version it was. It was fine. I didn't have any issues with it. It's not my main browser. We'll come back to that later. But explain what is the principle of Vivaldi. What are you offering that's different from other browser offerings?
It's putting you first, right, in every way. I mean, just like we always adapted to the end user before, we are adapting to you now. So that means we put in a lot of features.
Okay.
Because we all have different requirements when it comes to features. So we put in a lot of them. And I can mention a few examples where we are thinking differently. Let's say, for example, with the history function, in all browsers, seemingly the history is just a list.
Yep.
We're thinking that's not how our brain works. Our brain works in relations to things. You remember okay, that day I found something really interesting, and it was the day that I was also doing this.
Okay.
And that can help you find back to that particular content where you don't really remember the name or anything that can help you find it, right?
Yeah.
So searching for it, again, would take forever.
Okay.
So we show the history as day view, week view, month view, as a calendar. We show the top sites from each day.
Okay.
We also show you statistics,
Okay.
meaning that you can see kind of when are you browsing during the day.
Yeah.
What are your? I mean, you can search if you want to see how much time you're spending on Facebook. Just search for Facebook, and you can see how much time you're spending on Facebook every day.
Okay.
All of this is, by the way, it's just presentation of your local history data.
Yeah.
It's not. We don't want you to know.
Yeah.
We don't want your data.
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah. Sorry. Carry on. Yep.
So that's one example. Another is, I mean, for everything that you do, we try to have multiple ways to do it. So you can use, you can move the mouse to a certain location. You can also use mouse gestures where you hold down the right mouse button and you move the mouse in certain directions and that performs an action.
Okay.
You can record your own, by the way, if you like, also to which you then can assign to functionality. You can use single key or multi-key keyboard shortcuts, which you can also tailor. We have something called Quick Command, where you can enter commands, which will then perform actions. So there's a lot of different ways to do things with regards to the interaction based on the fact that we are different and we have different ways. And I remember telling the story at Opera. I would ask people, okay, how do you go back in history? It sounds more exciting in many ways than what I'm talking about, but okay, you would have 5 different or 7. If I had a group of 7, I might get 7 different answers.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's really the point. There isn't a correct way to do things.
Yeah.
There is your way to do things, and yours is as good as mine.
And so is it a browser that you think is mostly aimed at power users, or will they get the most from it?
They will definitely get the most from it. So if you're spending a lot of time on the internet, you need Vivaldi.
Okay.
If you're only using Facebook and YouTube, you can probably manage with any browser.
Yeah.
But you might, I mean, I set it up like for my mother and for my mother and father-in-law and the like. And when I go through the process, I for example, we have something called the speed dial, where you have your favorite sites. So you would go and show them how you put your favorite sites in there. Maybe they would have a requirement to change the zoom level, for example. So we might do something about that. Or there might be other things that just adapt better to their requirements. So we get the techies directly, the ones that are spending a lot of time, that feel confident enough to download software to their computers. And then we get to the others through them.
And what platforms is it currently available on?
Windows, Mac, and Linux.
And will it also be mobile at some point?
Yes.
Or, on all?
I mean, we would start with Android because iOS is
easier.
So we're working on Android, but iOS is difficult because Apple doesn't allow competing software.
And especially browsers, you can add it, but it's...
I mean, the browsers have to be built on their engine.
Yeah.
Which means a lot more work.
Yeah. Let's come back to that very, very quickly. When you do have that in a minute, sorry. When you do have the mobile client, will you also offer like a synchronization of bookmarks or history or other things as well?
We are working on synchronization at this time, so that's coming soon. We are working on the mobile version, which is going to take a little bit longer.
Yep.
And we are working on adding more features like email.
This is sounding very much like a company from the past.
Well, you may say that, but everyone uses email.
I know. Yeah.
And some of them, like me, have a lot of email accounts.
But is it going to be email in the browser or like a
email
separate...
in the browser?
Okay.
Which actually, once you get used to it, you don't want to go back.
Your own email provider, not just presenting.
No, others.
Okay.
You can use any email provider. We provide a free email service as well.
Okay.
Which you can use today, hosted in Iceland and ad free.
Okay.
But that's kind of just a service to our users.
Yeah.
I mean, anyone is welcome to use it, but it's what we are doing otherwise is working with any email service that you might have, and particularly useful if you have many. So I'm running it already. It's not ready for prime time, but it's good enough for me at least.
You just put yourself down a bit there. So actually digging a little bit more beneath the surface, what is the engine behind Vivaldi?
So we are using Chromium.
Okay.
Building a browser from scratch. We've done that obviously before, but realistically, there's a reason why Google is based on the Apple product that is based on a Linux product.
Yeah.
Building a browser from scratch is just not feasible in this day and age.
But I seem to remember that the early build at least still identified itself as Opera. Did you switch engines at some point?
Opera we built from scratch.
No.
Vivaldi has never identified as Opera.
It did when I tried it, which was confusing. But
That doesn't sound right.
Okay, well, I don't know. Maybe it was a temporary bug.
Yeah, if we would do that, that would be a bug.
Maybe it was someone having fun with you. I don't know.
That could also be.
But so it's based on Chromium, okay, which also gives you your developer tools and things like that for free, I guess.
Yeah, we still have to do a lot of work because we are doing things the hard way.
Free-ish.
Yeah, I mean, because so underneath you have the browser, but the user interface of the browser itself, instead of building it natively like the other browsers are doing, we're doing it in web technology. So we're building the browser in the browser.
Okay.
Which gives us the benefit of being it's cross-platform.
Are you using Electron or
no?
No. Okay.
We are doing things the hard way.
Okay. All right.
Electron would have been easier, but we didn't feel that it would. Well, I mean, we needed certain things like being able to handle extensions.
Okay.
And we were also concerned about we are building on a code base from someone else, building on a code base by someone else on top of someone else.
Base, yes.
There's a bigger risk in that.
Especially for something like a browser where everyone is obsessed with performance and speed.
And updates.
True.
Because if you have multiple levels of updates, if Electron would be late, we would be late.
Exactly.
Those kind of issues actually matter to us.
Actually, picking up on something you just said about a feature you have or want to have, I mean, I have tried a lot of browsers. I've been using the internet since the days of Internet Explorer 5.5, when it was still on Mac, and Netscape, and possibly even iCab. I think I used to use a lot, a German one.
The Mac one.
Yep. But one of the things that always keeps constantly at the moment pulling me back to Chrome is extensions and plugins and the ecosystem. And I think this has also been a problem for Firefox, which is probably the other kind of major competitor, and then Internet Explorer Edge, whatever Microsoft are kind of up to now. So will you be offering extensions, and what format will they take? Is it going to be your own format, or...
No, I mean, that's one of the reasons why we're not using Electron. We spent all this time making sure that Google extensions work in Vivaldi.
Okay.
And most of them do.
Okay. Well, this is good news, because it's half the reason I have a couple of extensions that to me are just fundamental to my workflow that are not available on Safari or Firefox, and I just end up going back to Chrome all the time because of it. And they're pretty simple extensions. They're nothing complicated, but just the company that makes them just doesn't invest the time in making them for anything else, I suppose.
Sure. And most likely let me know. If there were any issues with your extensions, let us know and we'll fix it.
I'll have to try again. I may have to wait for a mobile client because I do like to synchronize bookmarks. That's what it is.
Well, I mean, there are actually third-party solutions that you can use
I've tried them.
But you're right. I mean, we do want to have the mobile client, and we do know that this is something that's required. It's just we're a small team and we take it one step at a time.
It's actually interesting, though, because one thing I noticed with Firefox acquiring Pocket was it looks like to me that they're trying to turn that into Firefox's bookmarking system. It seems to be the way they've been promoting it in more recent versions of Firefox, and I don't know. I'm not sure if Pocket is overkill for bookmarks. I mean, we'll see. To kind of solve that synchronization issue, because then you don't have to think about it because it's a separate.
So Pocket is a solution from that, and that's the kind of thing that I was talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
That you could use third-party services like Pocket,
which is a lot nicer than. What was it, Xmarks or?
Xmarks is another one that
I've never found very, very useful, but I don't know. It always feels like. Anyway, we'll leave it there. Just sort of surveying the browser landscape generally. I mean, there was an interesting quote from an ex-Mozilla employee, I think last week, saying Chrome's won, and laying out his opinions why. And do you have any, I don't know if you read the article or have any similar feelings about just how hard it is to now beat that kind of behemoth with a competitor?
Well, I mean, the reality is, if you look at the history of the internet, and for me, there was always the one to beat in many ways.
Yeah, true.
When we were starting with Opera, the big discussion we had was whether we could compete with Mosaic.
Yeah.
Right? And by the way, our research group was divided in two about that, because half of us didn't believe we could compete with Mosaic. And then there was Netscape. And obviously, with Netscape, there was a similar situation. They seemed unbeatable to everyone except the little guys. I mean, the Gauls, right?
Yeah.
If you're into Asterix and the like, we felt like the Gauls, the little thing that always would keep fighting. And then you have, after that, there was Microsoft. And it looked like Microsoft was killing everyone off. And suddenly, they were not so invincible anymore.
Yeah.
So the current situation where you have the market leader has about 60% of the market, that's pretty far from the situation where the market leader would have 90%
Exactly.
So from that perspective, there is, Mozilla is still around with their own code base. Apple is still around with a different code base now than Google. There is Microsoft is still around, and we do aim to make a difference. I mean, yes, we are based on Chromium, but I think we can at least make a difference with regards to where the things are going. Yeah. We did that at Opera, even though we were the small player with up to 350 million users. But but we did make a difference, and I do hope that we can be that little voice that actually makes a difference out there.
I mean, speaking on that front, obviously it's a great attitude to have, but how do you plan to pay the bills, to keep going? What's the financial plan?
Well, we have a business model which is and by the way, I mean, Mozilla, there's all this talk about how badly they're doing. They're making $500 million a year, I think, last time I checked.
Just on Firefox?
Yes.
Or Mozilla as a whole?
Well, I think that's basically they don't make money off anything else.
Probably.
The business model is we need to get some users. The revenue per user that we had at Opera was about $1 per user per year. So not a lot of money, but if you have enough users, it kind of all adds up.
Okay.
So our focus is we believe we need 3 to 5 million users to pay the bills for the current organization. And then we can grow from there.
Okay.
And if people get to us and support us and kind of start using the browser, that's all the thing we need.
Yeah.
We need users. I think we can make some difference.
And is that revenue basically from advertising, or
it's basically search?
Search, yeah.
And some of the bookmarks we include. So if you use the bookmarks, like we have a Booking.com link, for example, if you use there's this rev share on that. There's no one paying us to be there. We just include as a rev share.
Okay. And how is Vivaldi comparing in terms of performance?
I think, because we're based on because we're based on Chromium, you'll find it's basically more or less there. Some people are reporting us to be a lot faster, but I think it depends on how you're using the browser. I think the bigger value than you with a stopwatch looking at a page loading, I think the differences should be minimal between us and Chrome. But it's more in the actual usage, you could see a massive difference because, we have things like obviously being able to handle a lot more tabs, so that's valuable, right? With tab stacking, with tab stack tiling, with being able to save sessions to reopen later. With undelete of tabs, really easily available. With again, even the keyboard shortcuts. If you want to talk advanced, you could put up a folder with your favorite bookmarks that you want open. You could put a keyboard shortcut for that, and then you could put a bookmark with a nickname. So, for example, you could have a two-letter bookmark. You open that, and it opens 20 tabs. You try to do that in any other browser, and it will take you a lot longer. So we have these things. If you have a certain way of working and you tailor Vivaldi to your way of working, you'll work a lot faster, or play a lot faster, or spend less less time redoing the same things. I mean, to me, the basics of the other browser is Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
You start where you start fresh every time with an empty window, unless you do something special.
Yeah, I suppose it's true.
And you're not really supposed to use the bookmarks, which is why they make bookmarks that are not really good.
Yeah.
And you're not supposed to use history, which is why they do history. They want you to search, which is what the business model is about. While in our case, we just want you to be happy.
Yeah. Okay. Do you often sort of wonder and worry that we now have basically, I think, one or two main browser rendering engines and maybe one or two others that are not used so much, and even keeping tabs on who's using what sometimes I lose track of. But do you think that's enough differentiation between the browsers, or are too many using WebKit now just because it's easier, or is that okay and what people add on top of it is enough to add the differentiation?
I think it's important to have competition. So I think in many ways it would have been, I think the fact that Presto went away, which personally I believe in many ways was the best engine. I mean, it handled memory handling better than anyone else. It could run on anything. We could run it even on the server side. So the loss of Presto is massive. And it's sad also because at Opera we had more people writing web standards than anyone else. So from that perspective, it's a massive loss. But it is what it is. At least we have a few engines, so let's be happy with that. And we as a company, we can do things on the top, so we can move the web forward through the things that we do in the user interface. And I can tell you, there's a lot of things that we can do there. Yeah. Just watch what we'll do. We will have a lot of fun, and we'll build great stuff.
And the positive, of course, is the days of those horrible, irritating differences between browsers as a designer are not as bad as they used to be. That's for sure. They're not perfect, but they're not as bad as they used to be.
I mean, we had to deal with the fact that in the early days, the web standards were not that well defined.
Yeah, okay.
And secondly, we had web browsers. I mean, the first web browser, like Mosaic, they tried to guess what you were wanting to do. The problem is when you do that, then you have to guess the same thing. And their engine was not really future-proof, right? It was not structured, it was not logical, but it worked. Yeah. And the other browsers were then built on that because Mosaic became IE.
Yeah.
And the Mosaic guys made Netscape.
Okay. Oh.
So from that perspective, it took a really long time where things were incompatible. And for the companies, when you were in this position, in many ways they didn't want to change that because for Netscape, it was good for them that the pages only worked for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And for Microsoft, it was the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think now we have a situation where we are more aligned.
And the web's moved on as well. He's capable of more anyway.
Yes. So it's a different situation. I think it's really important to keep it that way.
Yeah.
We have to, because this wanting to own the platform.
Yeah.
A lot of the big companies, they want to own the platform, and for the world as we know it, that's a really bad thing.
There's still a few trying to do that too much, but
we are seeing it to some extent on the mobile side, right?
Yeah, I think the ones most guilty of it now are probably Apple, which is I think is going to sting them in the long run.
Yeah, I mean they are making their platform more. I mean, like iOS is closed you cannot provide any browser. It has to be said, Microsoft is doing the same with their mobile platform and now Windows 10s.
I know that was concerning, and obviously it's always claimed for security and performance, but
it's not the truth, the whole truth, and nothing. But let's put it mildly. That's
I think it's just a more subtle way of doing what they did in the 90s.
Yes, but I mean, I remember the days. I mean, when there was a time there when Microsoft was trailing to Netscape. They went in there and they implemented the web standards better than Netscape, and they looked like the good guys. And then I know a number of standards people were kind of, yay, Microsoft is doing the right thing, and then they realized, hey, that was the embrace, and then there was the extend, and then there was the extinguish.
So now it's like history repeating itself, maybe.
I mean, when a formula worked for these guys, I guess they use them again. But for us as end users and as for societies, we need to keep our eyes open.
Indeed. So just wrapping up, like what's on Vivaldi's sort of next few steps roadmap, and what are you hoping to get out of Pioneers?
I mean, really, for us, it's continuing to develop the browser. I've already mentioned the mobile version sync. I've mentioned mail, and then there's a long list of ideas. And then tomorrow, someone is going to tell me a new idea that none of us had thought about, and that might be our next big feature, because that's how we work.
Yep.
We work in an untraditional way in that way. And for me to be in Pioneer, it's getting the word out and talking also about the bigger pictures. I did touch on the bigger picture during my talk. I didn't just talk about kind of building companies, which is the main focus of my talk, but I was also talking about privacy.
Excellent. That's a whole other conversation.